What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch, making some money, investing in fractional real estate online, as usual. Today, I just want to jump into Mogul. They had their monthly webinar today. If you didn't watch it, I would suggest you watch the whole thing and that you start, if you invest on the platform, to be, plan to watch it every month and to listen to what they have. They're often putting out new properties, like they put out the Chelsea today. This is one that if you've been watching my channel, you saw, some of us got this a couple of days ago, but it's not up on their site yet still. And it's already, about a third of the way sold out, a little bit more than the third. So it's nice to be able to get these on those webinars, get a little bit of early access to it. But if you remember my video from the other night, if you watched it, if you didn't watch it, I have a playlist on my channel for Mogul. So it has all the videos that I did covering any of the Mogul properties. There'll be a video for the Johnson 2 as well, which I'm going to give you a really quick update on as well. But my main concern when I was looking at this property the other day is that the square footage didn't match up with what the public records were. And I'm going to, they addressed this directly, so I'm just going to go ahead and play that so you can hear.
Description. So it is a 10-bed, 4-bath property that has 2 kitchens, 2 laundry, 2 full ingress egress kind of units. And with that, there's kind of this ordinance in Atlanta where a lot of the square footage that's under below grade, as it's considered, is not actually factored into the living space. So if you see any discrepancies as you're going through listings, as you're going through MLS data, that's what the discrepancy is going to be, is they don't take into account the fully permitted occupied living space that's below grade.
And so, that directly addressed my concern. That was my biggest problem with this one. We don't run into that same issue here in Texas. Everything's built on a slab. You hardly ever have anything below grade. And so I don't even know if we have a similar rule to that or not. Because even if we did, it would just hardly ever come up. But so, that completely explains, and what he mentioned, it's, completely permitted and everything, which is my concern, right? Because in Texas, if I see square footage that's not on the public records, it's often an indication that it was built without permits. It's not a guarantee, but it's something that's, relatively common. And so I was glad to see he addressed that directly. That really, for me, took away the vast majority. Any real hesitation I had to jump into this one, even though their analysis tab is still not up yet, because they're, so much of the yield on this or the return is just based on what they actually already have in place for income. I picked up a little piece of this one. Maybe when the analysis tab comes out and I've dug into it a little bit more, if it's still available, maybe I'll buy a little more. I don't know. They are putting properties out at a pretty quick clip, so. And as you know, if you've watched my channel, I'm investing across many platforms, and so trying to not put too much of my money on here just yet. It is, it just like always, just because I buy something doesn't mean you should. You want to do your own due diligence on the platform itself and on the individual properties. There is a link in the description to this video to all the places that I'm currently investing in fractional real estate online. Some of them will give you free money, like Mogul does. You get $50 for jumping in with that link. Read the terms and conditions. Like I said, do your own due diligence. But I've taken advantage of that myself, and I think they're on average putting out really good deals, especially when you compare them to a lot of the other sites out there that are doing something similar. It really is. When you look at the quality of the deals that they pick. There's not another platform that's coming close on an average basis. Like on Lofty, you might find the occasional deal that's as good as their average deal, but you have to really dig through. You have to look at a lot of dogs to find one or two good properties on there. Where here, I'm almost always buying at least some little piece of one that they put out. That being said, the other one they gave us a little update on is the Johnson 2. This is, my big concern with this one was the valuation. If you watch my video on this, I talk a lot about the comps because I have MLS access in this area, and I was looking at, what this sold for last and what other similar properties nearby sold for, and I had a really hard time coming up with the value that they have. One of the things I asked about is, hey, do they have the appraisal yet? And they said it did appraise. They haven't uploaded it yet. They said they'll go ahead and upload that, but I just wanted to just mention that real quickly. They said it has already, they had a complete the appraisal done. It came in at the value that they had it under contract for. Um, you know, One of the things I'll probably, because they still have a long way to go before this sells out, I'll probably wait and take a look at that appraisal uh, before I'll go ahead and commit any capital to this one. Even though it's a really nice property and I like the location. One of the things as real estate investors in general, we hire all these professionals, right? We count on appraisers, we count on inspectors, we hire agents, we do, all these different people in real life as we're, analyzing a property. But at the end of the day, we also have to use our own judgment and look at the data that they give us. It's very common to get an appraisal that just matches up with your purchase price. Um, you know, sometimes if you're grossly mispriced, it'll come in low. I'm honestly very surprised just from the research that I did that this one did appraise for the full value that they have it under contract for. So I just want to take a look at it before I'd go ahead and put money into it. It doesn't mean that that's the right thing to do. That's just an abundance of caution on my part. I'm also just really curious. So whenever that is uploaded, I'll probably, depending on how interesting the comps are, I might share some thoughts and go through that as well. Um, because it is, it's a but on the flip side of it, their deals have such high yields that the actual appreciation portion of your return is, it's not as important as on some of the sites that are basically half your yield or half of your return is coming from yield and half from appreciation. Where here it's more like 2/3 are from your yield or maybe even more. So it's not necessarily as big a deal, but at the same time, um, just somebody who I'm just cheap, right? I never want to overpay, and even if it's like a really standout property that's going to kill it, um, some part of me in my soul would hurt if I paid more than I thought it was worth. So I'm going to wait until that's uploaded. I can actually dig into the comps and really understand how they got to that value because it was hard for me when I did that other video. But I was really glad to see that it did appraise, and so can't wait to look through that. But they mentioned that. So one of the things that I really appreciate is they're clearly listening to people who are having questions and they're willing to share stuff. That was another thing they said. There's going to be an update. I think they said later this week or next week, where they're going to start. They're going to revamp the portfolio section to where we can actually see a little bit more financial performance data, which is fantastic. I mean, if you watched, I think the most recent time I mentioned this was probably a video I put out last night, saying like this is something that I think all the sites need to do a little bit better. I think I specifically even mentioned Mogul. I don't know. So I was really pleasantly surprised on the call today to hear that that's already something that they have in the works. This is one of the reasons I think that you should listen to their calls and interact with them. Every single time I interact with these guys, I come away being more just more impressed by what they're doing, and that I think that they're really trying to build something that is a true equivalent of just investing in real estate in good deals, in the type of real estate that I'm out, my team here in San Antonio tries to find for our clients. Like this is, they're always looking for those, short-term rentals that make a lot of sense, pad splits that make a lot of, they're not just buying like any old property that they find. If you look at, if you compare them to a site like Arrived, like it almost looks like Arrived buys random homes, right? They might like do some research on the market, but I mean, it seems like when I look at their platform, like I don't understand what their thought process is when they're picking stuff. This one, I really get what they're doing. And so, the more, and like I said, I don't always agree with every single one. This is one that I have a hard time with still. I'm really looking forward to seeing the appraisal, and I'd be happy to to realize like, oh, this is what I missed. This is what I'm not, this is what I wasn't thinking about. And it certainly could be the case that there's some adjustment the appraiser is making for, access to the park, like the closeness to that. Some other aspect that I'm missing when I was just looking at comps quickly on it. But so yeah, I mean definitely watch that. But so I was really pleased to hear that they're going to update the portfolio section so that we're getting more disclosure on the actual performance of each property. The only other thing that they talked about that I wanted to mention is they've started these clubs, and this is I don't think that if you just go to their, or maybe they do just exist. I don't know if this is live for everyone yet or not. I think they're rolling this out. Maybe it is already. If you go on here and you don't see this, I can send you an invite link so that you can see the clubs too. But it's just this Mogul.Club slash clubs. It's an interesting idea. They're trying to create sort of a social aspect to these where you can join a club. There is, interact with other investors. I joined this one, the 400. Uh, I don't know. You have to click the invite and they'll let you in or they won't. I think, I don't know. They said like this is for early adopters and friends and community members. I don't know if they're just going to let everyone in right now. They just let me in, so that was nice. But what they're doing, it's kind of interesting. So of for every dollar that gets invested, they're paying out 2% to the club members. So it's basically like you're getting a little rebate on your investments. But they're doing it to sort of incentivize people to join, invite other people to join these clubs. um, I thought that it's an interesting idea. But so I had a couple questions for people, how they're thinking about these, right? But one, some of the clubs, so there's that 2%. Some of the clubs don't have to pay out the full amount. Um, so like maybe if I'm providing some additional value, if I formed a club, I might keep some portion of it and I'd pay out some portion to club members. I just actually signed up for one right before I went through and did a transaction just because I wanted to see, and it does actually, as you're checking out, you get a little thing that says, "Hey, this is a club you've joined. This is the one that's going to get credited basically for this purchase." Um, so I don't know. I thought that's pretty interesting. One of the things that I was curious about, I was thinking about starting a club, and I wanted to get some feedback on, so if you want to put in the comments, or if you're a member of our Discord already, if you're not, in the link or in the description to this video, there is a link to our Discord. It's just the general fractional real estate investors, chat. We talk about Lofty, Mogul, Ground Floor, Collab, basically any fractional real estate investing site. That's already a space where a lot of us are getting together. At the moment, I think we have about 40 members, maybe 45. It's been growing pretty quick. I only started it a few months ago. But it is something that I think there's a real use of having a space that we can, talk about the different deals that come up. I've been trying to stay sort of somewhat not have a financial incentive to use any specific platform or to recommend any specific platform. But one of the things that's interesting, so they had mentioned these clubs to me a while back, uh, but I was thinking that it was something that people are doing so that they can keep that 2%, which is an option. But they do give you the option to just pay it all out to members, and so it made me think, well, maybe it's worth it to set up a club, to do that. At the same time, I kind of enjoy having just this own the separate Discord, where I might talk to you about Mogul, but we might also talk about a different deal on a different channel on there. So if you're already part of the Discord and do you think there's any benefit to us setting up one on here instead of just like I did, just jumping into somebody else's, just picking whatever one's out there that's paying out the full 2%. I don't want to miss out on that rebate factor. And I'm sure that I will jump in here, and so they have the about the club section and then a community section, and I'm sure I'll get in here and talk to some people. I think this one will be a good one because it is like their club that they set up. I think, or yeah, I think if you look, let's see, we can look at the rewards. Oh, he was looking at a different thing that was actually showing like who the chief mogul is. That's what they call the person that set up the club. And yeah, so you can see, yeah, it's founded by the two founders of Mogul. So I think like, if they're going to post like new properties or something, I think being in this one might be an interesting one to be in. Um, I saw one that was like for veterans, and I thought about maybe joining that one. But I'm curious, do if you guys have been watching this regularly, do you think we should set up a Mogul club? Is there a benefit to it versus us just having the Discord and then just getting the 2% by joining whatever other club? Maybe we benefit more by all joining different clubs and having some other discussions and then coming back and talking about it together. I don't know. These are all thoughts that I've had. I haven't really decided what I want to do yet. Um, as much as I think I am really positive on Mogul, right? Like I think probably of all of the sites I'm invested on, them and why I don't think I really have many complaints about Ground Floor, except for they're trying to push us toward that flywheel portfolio that, and I don't love that. But in general, like those are the two platforms where you'll hardly ever hear a complaint from me. And then as far as like Mogul's selection of properties, I mean, I think that they do a fantastic job. I mean, I think if me and my team here in town were out just picking properties, I don't necessarily think we're going to do any better than what they're doing. And so to be able to invest alongside them in deals, um, I try to not. At the same time, I want you to do your own due diligence. Try not to tell you like, hey, this is what you should do. But like a friend of mine asked, where if I'm only going to invest in on one platform and I just want to get started, where would I do? It's often the one that I think is the best for someone like that. But at the same time, I don't want to be too attached to any one site because, as we've seen, different platforms have gone down, different managers on certain platforms have blown up and, had deals fall apart. And as much as it seems like these guys are doing everything right, we could get 2 years down the road and have it turn out that, I was wrong about all of it, right? And so I'm trying not to be in a situation where I'm tied to any one because I want to be able to share all the different options because I do think Mogul's a great option for a lot of people. But I think, like, for example, if you're someone like me who's just going to spend a ridiculous amount of time on a platform and really dig up deals, I think Lofty is a place where you're going to get a much higher return on average if you're just trying to put a small amount of capital to work. I think you do kind of get limited when you start to put too much on there because there's only so many discounted tokens. Um, but in general, just because of what I'm trying to do, I'm really trying to help, shape this community and industry and like, share ideas with a lot of other people who are looking at the same types of stuff as us. I mean, I think that's why I like Mogul so much so far is that I think they're responding to feedback from all sorts of people like us, and you know, speak the same language as me as far as real estate investing goes. And I think have never just had an answer to a question that I've just thought, oh, that's completely ridiculous, or they're kind of missing the point. I mean, I think that they're just on top of it. But anyway, even with all that being said, I still don't know that I want to be too tied in financially. So I'm not going to start one where it's just like, okay, this is our separate club, and I'm gonna take some portion of that. But do you think there's a benefit of me just starting one and it's all paid out to our group, or you know, does us having our separate Discord communities is that are we good enough with that at the moment? So let me know what your thoughts are. Feel free to put a comment in this video, or to just jump in the Discord and mention it there, or to just PM me, or some people have been starting to call me through Discord, which I think is interesting. I'm somewhat limited of how often I can talk to people on there because, um, I'm usually most of the time I spend online, I'm multitasking, so I can't always necessarily be talking. But that's even I don't mind. I really love talking real estate investing. Any of this stuff I think is I'm happy to share ideas with, hear other people's thoughts, and so any place you want to connect with me on this stuff is great. I've had people find me on LinkedIn or find my email address. I don't know. I mean, I think the easiest way, to start a dialogue is just jump into the Discord with me because I'm in there almost all day, every day. But if you don't have a Discord account, any of those other places are perfectly fine with. You can find me by my name on X. I'm on there quite a bit as well. Um, that's really it. I'm just super curious what people think of the clubs. Is it like so? One of the things that I think is like, is it just one more social media spot that is going to be like one too many places for me? Yeah, one of the thoughts that I have is like, okay, what if we start to have a good discussion, we get really entrenched in it there, and then it turns out there's a different platform that I think is actually better, and now we have to move all our discussion somewhere else. Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I think that that's part of why they're building this is because they're trying to get that community tie in, and so it's a situation where our interests aren't exactly aligned with the platform, right? Like they want us to get tied in there, and I think that's a perfectly legitimate thing. And I think if you're not already talking to other investors in some other format, there's a real benefit to doing this, um, because even if I love the platform and I think that they're doing an amazing job, I don't think that you should just blindly buy every single deal that they put out, right? And so having some other people to bounce ideas off of, to think about, and even if you do buy every single one, maybe you don't put the same amount in everyone, right? Maybe certain ones you want to allocate more and other ones you want to allocate less. And having other smart investors to talk to about why you might want to have certain ones, why you might want to, all sorts of different things. I think there's a need for it, which is a big part of why I started doing what I'm doing here on this channel. Um, I guess that's really it, though. I don't think that. Yeah, I think that's everything. But so if I just really look forward to your feedback. Thanks for watching this far. I think I probably spent 2 minutes saying the same thing 3 times. And so anyway, until next time, I will just keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.